Aloha everybody, and welcome to the Wild Wahine. This is Kaylani, and this is your astro forecast for this upcoming week, the 28th through July 5th. So we have a lot to talk about today because Mars is activating that Saturn-Uranus square in a very, very intense way, and that's essentially just going to be the topic of this entire week because those are the transits that are happening this particular T-square. And so let's just jump right on in. First off, you might be feeling this week or approaching this week very frustrated, a little bit angry, or possibly having some of your anger maybe buried a bit. You could feel some disappointment, or you could just feel like inflamed with emotions, a little bit irritable, not exactly sure like, you know, what this is, like what's going on. Well, it's this, it's Mars activating that Saturn Uranus. Now I had like 2 other videos that I talked about the Saturn Uranus square, which I will link up here or down in the description below, a little bit about it. But Mars is coming in there, Mars in Leo, with all the bravado, with the needs to be seen, with the kind of bravery, with all of the ego and the passion, and is activating or inflaming and irritating this square where things that are stuck are going to be moved. And so we're going back into this kind of key signature of 2021. So wherever it was about 2 weeks ago in your life where you felt that Saturn Uranus square when it was perfecting, you're definitely going to be feeling it now. And we're going to first feel it with Mars transiting through there this week. They're all kind of sort of tough aspects. You know, it's making squares, it's making opposition. So these are a little bit more difficult times, and we have to kind of put a little bit more energy, and it's going to be delayed gratification for really the next 2 weeks. So fixed signs are going to feel this. So Leos and Taurus and Aquarius and some Scorpios as well, but really Leo, Aquarius, and Taurus placements, all fixed sign placements really are going to feel this a little bit more intensely, especially if you have like stelliums, which is a lot of planets in those houses. Those are where you're going to feel it. Now we're all going to be attacking this from different areas in our lives. So if you want more details about specifically where these planets are and what house and what it specifically will be activating for you, you can book a reading at www.thewildwahine.as.me to get your personal chart and your details. But this is just kind of like a general reading for all of us and a general feel for how things are going to be going. So Mars in Leo likes it hot, right? There's a lot of heat. There's a lot of energy. There's a whole lot of bravado. It's ego driven. It's dramatic energy. It is the youthful kind of, you know, masculine warrior type of energy. It's active energy. It inflames things. It makes it bigger. And wherever it comes, it's going to like really excite this space and take things from one level to a whole nother level. It likes to be seen. It's there to defend, and it's also there to offend, and you can do both at the same time. It's hot-headed. Sometimes you're in this space where for you, you might be the freedom fighter. For someone else, you might be the terrorist. It does have that quality. There is kind of like an innate explosive energy that comes with it. And so that is something to keep in mind as it's transiting and making this opposition to Saturn, which is a lot more cool energy. It's the energy of like the innovator. It's air energy. So it's forward thinking. It's about creating new structures. It's about letting go of old structures and building something new. It's about the collective. So we're kind of taking it away from the individual and more so what's best for everyone else. How are we going to move forward? How are we creating structures for everyone else to see? It's concerned about humanity. It's concerned about the environment. It's concerned about like interpersonal relationships. It's a lot more relational with everything. It's about becoming your own authority, you know, leaving the system and saying, I'm going to go do my own thing. I'm homesteading. I'm going off the grid. I'm homeschooling. Or it could be like, no, I'm going to stay in school, or I'm going to stay in this community, but I want to change it. I want to make it and create it into something different. So the highest vibration that can happen with this kind of energy is that it can really ignite your passion, which is a great thing. And it takes areas where you have been stuck in your life, because remember, this is fixed energy. And fixed energy likes to sit in there and likes to hold until it gets done. So sometimes that's a fantastic thing when we're looking to make sure that we get things done, but it's also a nice thing because you need to kind of move through that. Sometimes it's time, like you finish with the first level and now it's time for you to go to the next level. So it's really pushing you to do that. So wherever it is that you have things in your life, and this is pretty much like for all of this week, where you have been stuck, where you have felt like you haven't wanted to do things, where you haven't been focused on that, because maybe you've been focusing on like wanting to go out and play because, Venus and Mars are in Leo, or you've been in an emotional state because the sun is in Cancer, or your mind has been all over the place because Mercury retrograde and then direct now, in Gemini. This is really asking you to kind of sort of hone in all of your energy and focus on that one thing ahead of you that is challenging, something that you have to put all of your energy into. So it is a tough aspect. It is an opposition. It is the two malefic planets. It's Mars and Saturn, and they're opposing each other. So they're having like essentially the epic fight, But with that being said, it is time where you can use this energy to tackle tough things, to put in the work. Like when people go to law school, or if people are going to medical school, this is years of work, this is years of studying, but you're going to reap the rewards later. You're just not going to reap them now. So if you have something in your life that you've just been really struggling with, and you've had very little energy to really because that's the thing about struggle, or that's the thing about getting over the hump. Sometimes you just don't have the energy for it. Well, here's some energy that you have to, that's Mars, to get you over the hump of the responsible things that you need to do, which is all kind of Saturnian things. So this is a good way to use this energy, which otherwise will feel very aggressive, which will feel very irritating, and which can kind of sort of blow up essentially in your face. It's good energy also for people who like to use adversity to manifest things or to create things in your life. There are some people who work just really, really well with like a little bit of a push, like they kind of like having resistance. It's almost like if you're working out, I think there's like resistance training, or when you're like doing the Stairmaster or whatever, or you're walking on a treadmill, like just that little bit of resistance feels good. It's pushing yourself. Mars rules a lot of athletes. So if you had some body goals for yourself, that you wanted to lift a certain amount, that you wanted to bulk up a little bit, that you wanted to tone down in some ways, like whatever kind of goals you have, you want to do this hike, or you want to swim, or whatever kind of like physical goals you had, this would be a really good time to kind of sort of achieve that and to focus that energy towards that. With the lowest vibe of this energy, the energy that's like a little bit rough with this, breakups, potentially getting fired, having somebody cut you off financially, having someone cut you off emotionally, having to cut someone else off financially or emotionally if it's not working. It's about struggling against oppression. It's about struggling against something that looks like it's overwhelming, like it looks like it can kind of cover you and overtake you, and pushing back against things and really having a backbone. You can be hyper sensitive and hyper defensive during this time. With this Leo energy, it could feel very much that it's all about you, that when somebody said something, it's about you. You're taking offense to everything. You're taking everything deeply personal. That's something that could come up with this too. So allowing yourself to kind of like know that the world doesn't revolve always around you is a really good thing. With this Mars and Leo energy, this is youthful masculine energy that is kind of pushing up against things that can manifest itself in lots of different ways. So it can look like there's a battle between the old system and the new system, the older people and the younger people, the old ways of doing things and the younger ways of doing things. Sometimes even potentially wanting to go back to the good old days, as opposed to moving forward. Then we have Uranus in the mix. And Uranus comes into the mix. We can feel that on the 29th all the way to the 9th. And it perfects on July 3rd. So again, essentially, we're going to be feeling this all week, really until like the next week. And then, like I said, Venus is going to essentially make these exact same movements. Then she's going to combine with Mars and they'll be conjunct. And that'll be a whole other nice, interesting, explosive thing with our relationships and the way that we relate in our life. So I feel like when Uranus comes to play, now that Mars and Saturn are already having this very difficult conversation, one of the things I thought of, and I love to use like movies as analogies, I was thinking of Back to the Future. So this could be a spoiler, but hopefully you've already seen Back to the Future, so hopefully it's not. But after kind of being bullied, after kind of getting talked to badly, he stole his girl, that he had a crush on and all that stuff, he finally stands up for himself and he just like whacks Biff and knocks him completely out cold. That to me is like this Uranian moment where the whole thing shifts. And it essentially essentially shifts Marty's entire life because his father stood up for himself for once and just knocked, the bully down after he was being abusive to the girl that he liked. So that is one of the moments, this like lightning moment, this awakening. You awaken to yourself, you have this new spark of energy, the stakes become high, and you take that risk, you do that risk-taking activity that you've possibly been holding back for a really long time. You just let it rip. Now that can be amazing in a lot of ways because, Uranus awakens things. It's all about like revolution. It's about rebellion. It really does have this quality of an agent provocateur where it's coming in there and it's turning everything upside down. But it can also, quickly descend into chaos and become quite riotous. And actually the goals that you had set forth with Saturn and Uranus, which does like to change things and does like to make things new, but it does it in a very logical, airy kind of way. Uranus is just like, let's just destroy the whole thing, like bring it all down, like that kind of energy. So it's a different kind of energy that's going to be happening here with, when we're looking at things that are going on in the world, and also when we're looking at things that are happening in our interpersonal relationships. So this is about accidents. This can be about inventions. It could also hit our resources because Uranus is in Taurus right now. So that has to do with potentially like all of our like finances. It has to do possibly with like cryptocurrency, with environmentalism, with any of those types of things that has to do with food or food production, things that have to do with aliens or AI or any of those kinds of interesting kind of forward thinking things could be in the mix with this. Because it's Uranus, there's also a quality of like what physically is happening with the earth, and because Mars is making this square and Mars is all about fire and it's in a fixed fire, we have to be very careful about wildfires at this time, or explosions at this time, gas explosions, electrical explosions, any of those types of things just activating and happening. This really is like the perfect storm for like accidents that become very big and visible because in Leo, so everyone's going to see it, and explosive. And we're walking into July 4th here in the United States. So everybody's got to be really extra careful with their fireworks and all of that. Because if I had to do an electional chart, and an electional chart is when we, as an astrologers, pick a time for you that is the best time for you to activate or for you to do something, I would say this is the best week for you to blow yourself up. And so like you don't want to do that. So be very careful because I'm not going to be lighting any fireworks personally. Some of the positive things that can come out of this though is that lightning fast spark, that spark of inspiration that happens where you realize like something and you're ready to activate on it. That's fantastic. It can be very much like an act first and consequences later, jump and then the net will find you. If you've been on the edge of something, should I launch my podcast? Should I not? Should I audition for this role? Should I not? Like whatever thing you're kind of timid about, the places where you're scared, the places where you need to be shaken up, this is the time and this is where it's going to kind of activate for you. The places that are stagnant, the places that are fixed, the places that don't want to move, the places that don't like to move. There's fire now coming in there that's forcing it to move. It's going to be moving whether you kind of like it or not. And it also could be quite public because of the Leo quality to it. So it could be like that going through this whole process in a very public and a very visible way for all to see. Now, some of the things that are kind of challenging, of course, about this particular aspect when Uranus comes involved, you want to just be careful also too around our machinery. So trains and planes and automobiles and all of the things that are technical type of things, technology, running them. It just makes me think of like all the sci-fi films like The Matrix and like iRobot. And I'm not saying anything like that with AI or whatever now, but like it just makes me think of those kinds of things like, or tech just kind of going haywire and it just running amok, and then like, your whole computer, your software is all erased and you've lost like 10 years of work or something. Back everything up, have something so things are fireproof, or when you're running out of the house that you can grab the things that are important to you. You just want to make sure you have all that together. It's about pushing past your limit. It's about like really kind of pushing yourself to go and achieve something that you thought that you couldn't do. I wrote here in my notes, I have to read it to you verbatim, youthful masculine energy run amok. And I don't think I need to explain that more because that's potentially some of what can be happening right now. There is going to be like when they talked about the hot boy summer, I'm like, yeah, it's happening and it's probably going to happen this week, and hot girl summer's next week with Venus. And so we're just going to see how this plays out because this is going to be interesting because I think it's not going to be what we think it's going to be. Riotous events, just things that are really destabilizing in a lot of ways, which has people in it and it's kind of visible. Those are all some signatures. It can have also this like dark trickster energy, right? So we have trickster energy, right? Mercury is our trickster, and it's like kind of like playing around and teaching us lessons and things like that, right? Kind of witty banter and all of that. So the dark trickster energy really reminds me of like people who do pranks, you know, but then there are like 50 people who did this prank, and then they got all of these YouTube followers, and they're, you know, popular on the social media and all that kind of sort of stuff. And then there's that one person who like copied the prank or whatever it was on TikTok, and then they got really seriously injured. Like those kind of random, kind of the prank that went wrong. So this, again, perfect election time for the prank that goes wrong, especially if it's involving fire. So what are some of the things that we can do with all of this energy now that I've dumped all the possible things that can happen for this week as we get introduced to Mars just activating this Saturn-Uranus square? Well, I think that some things that are really important for us to think about at this time really is humility. That would be like the first thing that I think of, because I think that, you know, because we have Mars in Leo activating this energy, and sometimes with Leo energy, you know, I think like if the heart is right with Leo energy, the direction will be good, you know, it will be ego-less. But if somehow ego comes to play, if somehow it becomes all about you, if somehow you're no longer thinking of everyone else, if somehow you're no longer leading with the heart, and if also somehow you're no longer a child, because remember Leo is the child, and the beautiful thing about that is children are inquisitive. They don't think they know everything. They are learning things. They're constantly wanting to absorb everything all around them, all of the information and everything. If you stay in that kind of child type place, then you will lead with humility. It's a lot easier to do that. One thing that's going to also be important, super important, is restraint, is practicing that. I mean, and that is where Saturn and Uranus can be very helpful. It provides boundaries. It provides a big no. It provides a, you know, weight and sometimes like difficulties, roadblocks. So you really have to take your time. And when Saturn comes to play, it can be incredibly frustrated because you want to get things done now, and Uranus wants to blow up everything now, and Saturn is like, hold on, like hold. And so it can feel like a stop. It can feel like an explosive movement, and it's like, here we go, and then it's like we're stopping again, and then it's the frustration that builds up with 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, and all of that, which can cause people to like blow their lid and be really frustrated with the situation. What are the areas in your life that need to be shaken and not stirred? That's going to be important, because Uranus is coming to shake things up in that particular place. Wherever Uranus is in your chart, that's where the shaking is going to happen. And so how can you say, okay, I know I'm going to get shaken a little bit, because this is what I like to do when I know that I'm going through difficult transits, which I am, because I got a lot of fixed sign placements. So this is going to be interesting for me. Just watch my Instagram to see. I'll be sharing there, and I'll be also sharing on Clubhouse. We're on Clubhouse every Wednesday, so we are just going to be discussing different topics every week. So I'll also be sharing what these transits are doing to me, since they're going to be very personal to me in the next couple of weeks. But you definitely want to find areas in your life where you can be creative, where you can mix it up, where you can say, okay, I need some change, but what if I enact that change? Like, I don't need an outside stimulus necessarily to come and do that. Like, I can take action. I've been like waiting on something. I'm going to pull the trigger on it. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to just like let it go. And so when you actually do that, when you become the Mars in your life, instead of waiting for the transits to happen and for things to kind of sort of fall apart, you actually start working alongside the energy, which is what I like to do astrologically, which it just makes sense, and it's easier to work with the energy, and then you reap like a lot more benefits from it, and you don't spend as much time kind of licking your wounds like, oh man, I should have done this, and why didn't I do that, you know? So anyway, I hope this was really helpful for you. I know that's a lot of information, and I know I told a lot of kind of challenging emotions for this week. I didn't really have like a whole bunch of yay in all of it, but I mean, you know, sometimes we have those type of transits. They're just a little bit rough, and that's kind of sort of what it looks like. Now, again, it's going to hit everybody differently because it's hitting us differently in different places in our chart. So not everybody's going to feel it the same exact way and be going through it the exact same way. If you want more information, you can follow me on social media at The Wild Wahine. You can book a reading with me directly at www.thewildwahine.as.me. Also find me on Clubhouse, where they're on Clubhouse every Wednesday. You can follow my club, The Wild Wahine. I always have all of this information up in my Instagram. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and aloha. Have a beautiful week.